of our Towards Better Future strategy, what we're trying to do, how we're trying to do it, and to a large extent how you can help. Because one thing we certainly know is that we can't deliver for Glasgow young people without our partners, whether that be SDS, and I saw a dodgy character coming in from SDS just as I was looking at the lobby, our training providers and our business partners are all absolutely essential to what we're trying to do. So it's a great chance to have a conversation with you. And I'm just going to give you an overview of the strategy, and then I'm happy to answer any questions and just have a chat about various bits of it. Ashley, am I able to share my screen? Well, that's two different things. That's an equipment question, and then a skill question. It's the second bit that's dodgy. So this is the stressful bit of my day every single time I do this. However, that looks pretty positive. Ashley, you can just let me know if people can see that. Can you see it?
Yeah, that looks good. Yep.
Okay. So, just to start with an overview of what Towards Better Futures is, I took up this post in 2018, and having been a head teacher in Glasgow for 13 years prior to that, and at that point, kind of took on the responsibility to develop a strategy for employability and to support young people as they leave school. So Towards Better Futures is Education Services employability strategy, and it's got two different drivers to it. The first one is an aspiration or a target, depends what you're most comfortable with, but you can see the target there that we aimed for 100% positive leaver destinations by 2023. At this point, it was 2018. A different way of expressing that, I suppose, was that we didn't want any young person to spend between 13 and 15 years of their lives in Glasgow schools and then leave to unemployment. That to us is not an acceptable position for any of them, and we wanted to do better than that. We then extended the target a bit from just getting into destinations to actually staying in destinations. So that was an important shift for us. And the way we've set out to deliver on that aspiration is that entitlement that's on the slide there. We wanted to do whatever was necessary so that all of our young people were ready to take on those positive destinations. We didn't want it to matter what school you went to. We still don't want it to matter what school you go to. Regardless of what school you go to, you will be given experiences and opportunity and everything that you need so that at the end of your school career, you're ready to take on that positive destination. I suppose the way of looking at it is it was about developing a young workforce. That's what it says on the tin. And we wanted our schools to develop young people who are ready to take their place in society and also to make a contribution to their own communities in terms of making them better. So those are the two things that drive the strategy. We then wanted to find out where we were with regard to them. So we commissioned a company with the help of our Chamber of Commerce colleagues to carry out baseline research for us. Now, Rocket Science carried that out for us. I'm not going to give you all of the detail of what they told us, but one of the things they did for us alongside their own statisticians was they looked at all of the young people who were in a negative destination in 2019 at that point. And they analysed the features of them for us. We had a reasonable idea of what contributed to being in unemployment, but we did want an evidence base to say, right, what is the nature of this? What does it mean? What is the story with these young people so that we knew what we should be doing about it? Now, at that point, there were 430 young people in a negative destination. and we went through each one of them individually to see what it told us about them. So on the left side of the slide there, you can see what it told us. The majority of young people who left to unemployment were the ones who left at the end of 5th year. They can, of course, leave at the end of 4th year. We assumed that most of them would have left at the end of 4th year, but in fact, they'd left at the end of 5th year. Half of the young people who were unemployed had an additional support need, and these are all from mainstream schools. They weren't in an additional support need school, they were all in a mainstream school, but they had an additional support need, sometimes of a mental health nature, often of a behavioural nature, but no matter what it was a contributing factor to them leaving school to being unemployed. 8% of them were looked after or had been care experienced. That was actually less than we expected it to be. And I do think that is a tribute to a lot of the work that's gone on in our schools to support care experienced young people, especially through MCR Pathways and their mentoring programme, which a lot of our chamber colleagues were involved in. As you can see, 68% of those young people, over 2/3, lived in what we call SIMD1. SIMD1 and 2 are the 20% most deprived areas in Scotland. 68% of our young people who are unemployed lived in those areas. The statisticians pointed out to me that I shouldn't be surprised about that. 60% of Glasgow's young people live in those areas. But nevertheless, if we're going to make a difference, if we're going to close those gaps, if we're going to make those communities better, we can't just accept the fact that if you live in an area of high deprivation, that you leave school to be unemployed and potentially live in high deprivation. Another sign of poverty and another sign of deprivation is the number of them that were in receipt of free school meals. And you can see that 30% of them, that was the case. And then some things which were about their school experience. 38% of them had an attendance of 75% or below. And if you can think of that in terms of, well, if you have 80% attendance at school, you only go 4 days a week. So if you've got less than 75%, you're doing even less than that. And 66% had the highest level of attainment as level 5, i.e. what you might know as national 5, or even if you're a bit older, standard grade credit. But very significantly and concerningly from my point of view was that 10.8% of them had no qualifications at all. And that's been something that in my role as raising attainment, we've kind of committed that no young person should leave a Glasgow school with 0 qualifications. So what have we done about it? Certainly at that point, we felt there were not sufficient targeted support for these young people, and there were no programmes to support them from that negative destination into a positive destination. And anything that was on offer, a lot of which was general employability programmes, they didn't want to be involved in them. They didn't motivate them to get involved, and we certainly felt that we had to change that. So, having had the evidence, having done the research, we then set out to do something about it. And the first thing we did was we looked at how we support schools and young people as they're leaving school, and we completely changed the programme for that support. We had more regular meetings with school staff. We got closer to young people who were leaving school who looked likely to go to a negative destination. We formed better relationships with those young people. We got to know them. Through Young Person Guarantee, which was the government's funding commitment about 18 months ago, we have been able to fund a full-time Developing the Young Workforce coordinator in every secondary school. Some of that funding came from the Chamber of Commerce, 50%, 0.5, and 0.5 came from the council. That's been fantastic. Those people are there to develop partnerships and develop the young workforce in the school, but also to support young people as they leave school, and they're doing a terrific job in that. We then set up Towards Better Futures next steps, and some of my team are on this call, so I need to be careful what I say about them, but they've done fantastic work in getting employability opportunities for our young people and getting them into a positive destination when they were previously disengaged. And one of the things we found there actually was that starting with a case management approach where we made a contact with a young person, whether it was from Skills Development Scotland or from the school or from my team, and the conversation didn't start with the fact that they were unemployed. It started with, well, what do you want to do? What do you feel able to do? What excites you? What would you come out to? And based on that, we developed programs rather than the other way about, which was, well, here are the programs, do you fancy joining them? We started with, well, here are the young people, let's design the programs. And what came from that was that programs in particular areas that young people wanted to do attracted them and got them involved. So things like sport, construction, health and beauty, business type activity, but quite precise, engineering, all of those kinds of things got the young people involved because they saw, yeah, I want to do that, so I'm going to go along. But we also looked at providing training allowances, travel support, all of those things that kind of stop you going into a destination or coming out the house in some cases, and we didn't want that. We also wanted to work more closely with young people who were not in school, and some of our leavers left school, but they hadn't been in school for a year or sometimes even longer. So we designed routes to awards and destinations, which are young people who are still on a school roll, but who are not attending school. And our commitment was that you can still be in education even if you don't walk through a school building. And we were really keen that was the case. We had young people who were going to college, who were struggling to stay in college. So we now have a mentor in every one of Glasgow colleges through Action for Children, and they support young people to stay in college. And we have our own route programme, which is to support young people who are furthest away from the labour market. So all of those things were a response to that research on our young people in negative destinations. We then really have given a lot of attention to how do you make young people more employable, and that doesn't start at the age of 15 or 16, it actually starts at the age of 3. And one of the things we had to do, and we are continuing to do, is try to widen their horizons. And that, research tells us, has to happen before the age of 10. If it doesn't, they get locked into things that they think they can do, and it tends not to change. So we're working in our primary schools is really important, and extending understanding of, well, what are the job opportunities that are out there? And we need our young people to, first of all, understand the opportunities that are there. I was amazed when I started this job at the number of vacancies that remain unfilled in our city. I think I saw Suzanne Sherry on this call, and it cracked her up. She had fantastic apprenticeships, couldn't get kids into them. And I was finding that in all kinds of places. And one of the things that really occurred to me was it's all very well making young people aware that there are opportunities, but you then have to make them want to take up those opportunities. So how do we do that? Work-based learning is more than just work experience, but getting young people into the workplace, getting the workplace into work with young people. So that's important. That if young people live in families which are third generation unemployed, they are not connected. They don't know people. It's all very well if your family have got their own lawyer, or your mum or your dad's an engineer or a doctor or whatever it is. You're then connected in the world. But if both your parents are unemployed and you've never seen anyone working before, and it's up to us as an education service to make those connections for young people. We needed our teachers to think more about how they link learning to unemployment. We wanted to develop their skills because all employers were telling us we need them not just to have qualifications, but we need them to have skills. We need them to extend their understanding of the labour market, and not just the young people, but teachers. And then all those other things were all about, well, what does education look like? What opportunities do you get? What experiences do you get? What leadership opportunities can you get? Our young people are fantastic leaders, but often they weren't being given the chance. And the right advice, the right information, and the right guidance. So what do we need school to look like? And if you start in the top right-hand corner of that slide as you look at it, for some young people, it will always look like that. They want to sit and they want to do academic work. They're on an academic path. They want to go to university. They're already set up to head in that direction. And we do not want to lose that. We need that for them. But for all of them and for lots of other young people, we need school to look at these other opportunities, those other experiences. For children of a very young age, for young adults, to be out in the workplace, to be working virtually, to be talking to employers, to be learning from employers, and to be getting role models. Because although, as you can see, I'm a hugely motivating, attractive and exciting person, I'm not a role model for 14-year-olds. They just look at me as an old guy in a suit. So we need them to see people that they recognise and go, aye. And much more research, which is now saying, to be it, have to see it. So it's you guys that give them those role models. So that's what we're trying to do in education a bit more. We're making great progress on that, but we need what you guys can provide, what business and trainers and your partners can provide. So there's some ideas of what they are. I don't want you to think that you have to commit to massive projects, ongoing relationships with schools. You can do an hour. You can do an hour a week. You can do a week a year. You can do lots of stuff. Every bit of it's important. So please understand that work-based learning has lots of forms. So let me give you a couple of examples. I was talking to a primary head yesterday, and she was talking about partnerships that they've got with 3 employers. And what the partnership was a Teams session where the children in the primary school were able to ask the people who worked in the different businesses about their jobs. So what do you do? What does that mean? What does that look like? How did you get into that? And they just had a whole load of other people sitting online in the workplace and talking to the kids. Really, really powerful. Other bigger projects, in one of our secondary schools, a business came in and did a whole morning of engineering workshops with young people in second year, and they brought in their apprentices to be the leaders of the workshops and just talk to the young people. That's a different example. We had Police Scotland who did a virtual work experience for us. We had the head of HR from Glasgow Airport who worked with a secondary school, kids who are leaving school, just about recruitment. Talking to them about, well, how do you dress for an interview? I always think you dress for an interview in a suit. He was saying, you don't dress like that. You dress the way the organisation kind of wants you to dress, so you need to find out about that. Lots of fantastic advice. And lots of our work with employers is just in your local business. So in Castlemilk, all the local businesses work with local nursery. And we've got young people in Castlemilk who want to open their own cafes, who want to be paleontologists at 3. Now, I wanted to be a football player when I was 3. I had no chance of that happening, but it didn't matter. I had an ambition, and it's important that everyone gets that. So those are things that you can get involved in. We talk about exposure to work now. That can be an afternoon in the workplace. It can be a half day in the workplace. It can be an hour talking to someone. It can be a bridge to employment where you have a 12-week program that's at the end of it. You say, right, great, we'll employ you now. And again, Arnold Clark did that with us. what I'm trying to say to you is, don't be put off by the idea that you have to commit loads of hours and loads of people. If you've got that, brilliant. But if you haven't, whatever you can do helps. Our young people, as I've said, need role models. They need support with recruitment. They need opportunities to be in the workplace during school hours or when they're on holiday. They love that, and just get to know what it's like. If you live close to a school, there's a school that you can link into and they're desperate to see you. But the last bullet point there is the most important thing. It's not what suits us. There's too much of that. It's about what can we do together, and what suits you. Tell me what suits you and we'll make it work. And then it's not just about us benefiting. I do firmly believe that your organisation will benefit from being involved in working with young people. The people in your team will get better. They'll develop skills. They'll get to know about themselves. They will grow professionally in confidence and interpersonal skills and how they present, all of which is transferable into to how you work. They will have to look at things in a different way because it's a way of working they've never done before. So they develop that adaptability, that flexibility. You will develop your own community profile because schools will publicise the work, will talk about it, will put it out on their social media, as will you, and that just grows that understanding. You get the opportunity to develop your pipeline of talent. And I'd be interested in part of the conversation because I'm really keen that you look beyond qualifications. You look beyond National 5 English. You know, National 5 English just tells you that they can write about Romeo and Juliet, or they can write about a novel. It doesn't tell you everything you need to know. And if you don't get to young people unless they've got National 5 English, you're missing out a massive pipeline of talent who can do what you need them to do. So let's think differently about how we recruit. And by doing that, your organisation and all of your people are known they're making a difference to young people in poverty and fighting the battle against poverty. So those are things that you can do. So what have we done so far? So when we started on this exercise, our positive destinations were 92.3%. That was our best ever for Glasgow. The figures have just been published for those young people who left in 2021, and that figure is now 96.2%. That's a massive increase. That's our best ever. If you think that every 1% is over 40 young people, that's a massive increase. That's close to 160 young people who are now in a positive destination who weren't before. The other really important thing is that's better than national average. National average is 95.5%. Glasgow is now better than national average. When we started, we were 4% below national average, and now we're above national average. We've not just closed the gap. The gap is now between national and us, and we intend making that gap even wider. But the other thing you need to remember is Glasgow is so big. When Glasgow's average goes up, everybody's average goes up. So we're pulling the whole country up. When you look, we started with those 430 young people unemployed. This year we have 174 young people unemployed, and we're on the way to that figure being zero. And that has been a partnership triumph. That's been through partnership with the DYW Group and the Chamber of Commerce. Ashley and all the guys that are here, we've got a fantastic partnership with them. They're a huge support to us, and we're a huge support to them, because their job isn't to support us, they're to work together with us, and our job's the same. So often we say to each other, what do you need? Tell us what you need and we'll give you it. They say that to us as schools, we say that to them in terms of working with business. Skills Development Scotland, phenomenal partnership with Skills Development Scotland, regular meetings with them, training our staff, working alongside them, getting close to our kids and doing that. Our training providers have been phenomenal at running those programs, designing them for our young people, using those programs as a way of getting them qualifications that they wouldn't otherwise have got, and then passing them on to the next partner to say, right, we've taken them here, now it's on to you to take them there. And our colleagues in the council family, our Glasgow Guarantee colleagues, our colleagues in economic development. It's a massive partnership. The voluntary sector have been phenomenal. The triumph has been partnership. And we're only on the way because we've not achieved our target yet. We're delighted with that. If it's that in 2023, we'll not be delighted with that because we want it to be 100%. We need all of you to help us with that. And that's what today's about, to say to you, look, this is what it's about. What can you do? How can we help? How can we work together and to start us making connections? And the last wee thing I always point out to, we finish every presentation with a picture of a happy young person, because that's actually what it's about. The percentages are percentages, but behind every percentage is one young person. And we change young people's lives, one young person at a time. That young person left one of our schools 4 years ago. She's now an engineer. Look at that smile. That's the way she left. That's the way she still is. And that's because of the work that we all do together. And we want to do that for every single one of them. So that's me, Ashley. I'm happy now just to get involved in the conversation and hear from people and answer questions and do whatever I can to make people feel better about this and really want to be involved, because as I said, we can't do it without them.
Thank you so much, Jerry. What a brilliant presentation. So as Jerry says, we're now open to take questions or comments. If you can just pop your hand up, I think we can see who puts their hand up first and we can come to you. So if you could, if anyone wants to hold their hand up and let us know any questions or comments. It's always waiting for the first person.
Yeah, thinking time's a good thing. We like people to have thinking time. That's important. Oh, there we go. There's Donna.
Donna?
I'll go for it. Oh, am I shouting?
No, you're not shouting at all. You're absolutely fine.
Got a big echo here. Sorry, guys. This is the first I've used these headphones. So listen, I'm really so I'm based within a university. So my participation today was partly out of just an interest that I have in, you know, developing our youngsters and developing our workforce. I also have a couple of small organised companies of my own that I run separately. So, but here's one question that I wanted to ask, and incidentally, thanks, Jerry, that was a brilliant presentation. In actual fact, I can't believe I thought I had a reasonable overview of what you guys, or what was on offer for our young people, but that was outstanding. But here's a question I have, and this is more from personal experience. So we had a youngster in the family, give my age away here, my great nephew, but he went from being a straight A student in primary school, and by the year 2 in secondary school, I don't even know what happened. Things had fallen apart. Then COVID hit. So then COVID hit, and he's now, I would say, almost unemployable in terms of, he's not in trouble. I don't mean anything like that. He's gone from being interested in being a lawyer to now being interested in painting and decorating. He's always been very arty and all of that, and his uncle takes him out on these job sites and all that. But he's been trying to secure a painting and decorating apprenticeship or work in and around the Glasgow area, and every single company that it contacts, they're asking for a minimum of 5. Some it varies in terms of the qualifications. What does a young person like that do? I mean, I've found that kind of shocking almost, and it may go back to what you said earlier, Jerry, about trying not to think necessarily about qualifications.
Yeah, it frustrates me, Donna. It really does. I kind of get it because it's a straightforward filter. Do you know what I mean? It's a kind of easy, ready reckoner just to go, right, let's get 5 national 5s or 5 national 4s. The skills of painting and decorating, I'm not sure how much of that comes out in national 5s, but that's, I suppose, there's some national 5s that it does. So there's that issue, and I suppose that's societal, isn't it? And I think it's structural. And really what I try to do is every time I get employers in the room, I challenge it and I say, look, guys, there's another way of doing this, which is much more positive. The second thing, I suppose, is where's the gap for them and for any young person? Because that's where we kick in. I don't know what his connection is with the school, but until he's employed, the school still have a responsibility to him to get him into something. We work with our schools to get closer to young people like your nephew. We'll take the great out, Donna, just for your own sake. We'll just call him your nephew. I've got great nephews as well and great nieces, and I just call them my nieces and nephews. I'm not doing the great thing yet. They don't think I'm great anyway, so that's a whole other story. But I do think that we can start up. See if he looks at it as a journey. He's not there yet. So what's the next step that will get him closer? A training programme, a college programme. My team can help with that and are happy to do that. Their school can help with that, and the school working with us can help with that, and skills development. So I think it feels to me a bit that he's sitting in the house kind of disconnected at the moment, or
Totally.
we need him to go from being disconnected to a first contact.
Yeah.
You'll know better what that should be. As parents will know better, as carers will know better. Is the first contact with someone from Skills Development Scotland? Is it somebody he knows at the school? Or is it someone in a team like us who can make a contact with a training agency or a college? But there's a contact to be made here. If he doesn't feel able to do it, it's up to us to help him to do it. And Michelle Kershaw's just stuck her name in the chat, and if you email her, she's going to help you to do it.
Oh, that's outstanding. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
No,
that's brilliant.
And just on the widening the university issue, in those 96.2%, 43.5% of Glasgow young people are going to higher education. That's the most ever, so we're thrilled with that. But also, universities are big employers, and there's lots of opportunity in there, even if you don't want to go and study. So really important partnership for us. And the work we've done in Widening Horizons has been brilliant, and the universities have been superb in working with us on that. So that's been great as well. Is that okay, Donna? Is that?
Yes, thank you so much, Jerry. I've got a terrible echo here.
That's all right. The worst thing for an echo for me is I hear my own voice, which is never a good thing.
Right, next we've got Julie.
Thanks very much. And Jerry, that was really good to hear what's happening in Glasgow and good to get a wee update. I thought I'd just come in, I hope that's okay, on Donna's question and just that issue that people, particularly employers, are having around understanding qualifications. Obviously I work, Jerry will know, I'm at the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework, so what we do is help everybody in Scotland understand qualifications better. So when people talk about NAT 5s or NAT 4s, it's helping employers understand what's in place now. But the other thing we're trying to do, and a number of Glasgow schools are engaged with us on this, is we have a school ambassador programme which is encouraging the schools to help employers and their young people and parents understand pathways and develop different pathways for young people. So building on what Jerry's saying, the importance of the fact that not everybody will do their NAT 5s, go to university and do the highers and then go on to university. There are so many different pathways. And something we do for employers is help them understand, A, what all the different types of qualifications and get them thinking about talking in SCQF levels. And when you start doing that, it opens up lots of different things that a young person might have done. And it isn't just about qualifications, it's about other programs that Jerry was talking about that would really, engage a young person, but then using those to progress in their learning pathway. So I'll put a couple of things in the chat if that's okay. One is around helping people understand what the different levels are and what is there at each level, and then opening up that kind of recruitment process by talking in terms of SCQF levels. So it's not just about qualifications, just what Donna was saying, it's about all your other skills and experiences that you might have gained. And if we can get employers to think about SCQF levels and not exact specific qualifications, then it opens up that kind of pool of talent, really. I'll put a couple of things in the chat, but it was just to explain that. I just thought that might build on what you were both saying. Thanks.
Yeah, Julie, thanks very much for that. I think that's an important distinction. And again, I think one of the things that education hasn't done well enough is help employers understand the qualifications. You guys do phenomenal work and all of that, but I don't think schools necessarily have done as well as we could have, and the education establishment possibly hasn't done as well as we could have in that. But that point about levels rather than specific qualifications, I think is a critical one. And that wider range of qualifications that you can get, which tell so much more about a young person than just higher English or anything like that. So it's an important distinction, and I think it would be great for all the guys on this call to maybe get an opportunity to find out a wee bit more, and that might be something else that we can do through the chamber, but certainly through what you're going to put in the chat. I'm just going to pick up a point that Suzanne Sherry's put in the chat, and I don't want her to think for a second I'm suggesting that our young people shouldn't get qualifications. I spent a career getting young people as many qualifications as I could possibly get them. So yes, they do need qualifications. But what I'm saying to employers is, think about what you need from the young people that you want to work for you and start there. There will be things you need them to do. There will be skills you need them to have. Let's make sure they've got them to the level rather than just being about one thing, which is 5 national 5s or whatever it is. So that's my point. Not for one second saying we don't want our young people qualified, but I did read a fabulous quote when we were doing our research when we started towards Better Futures, which was that schools were in danger of creating the most highly qualified and least employable generation of all time. And I don't really want to do that. Absolutely, Suzanne. Thank you. So just thought I'd pick up that point. Julie, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. You might be in the hot seat for the next webinar.
And if you are, Julie, I'm going to be sitting there watching, I'll tell you that.
I'd be happy to, Ashley and Jerry, no problem at all, and take all the questions.
And we've got Gillian up next.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
It's still on the qualifications piece, so totally agree with everything Julie said there, and I'd be really keen to explore like how we can kind of change people's approach to this, like employers' approach to this. But to Suzanne's point, my issue is I work at Diageo as early career specialist, and the types of apprentices we bring in is like predominantly in manufacturing. So if you're thinking about engineering, for example, right? They go to college in their first year full time, and the college actually stipulate those qualifications. So if they've not got an @5 in maths, for example, they're not going to get on that college course. So how do we get around that? Because I'm really open to exploring the different pools of people that we can reach, but we need a minimum of 3 @5s to bring them into the business in the first place. Otherwise, they won't be able to complete that college course.
Aye. It's that level of it's that level of qualification, Gillian, isn't it? Which, as you say, is defined, which is defined by the colleges. You know, if you want to get into that course, and in a way, I'm less concerned about that because we have massive numbers of young people that will get that level of qualification and get into college. So I don't worry so much about that. when you look at that, see that 96.2% figure, close to 80% of that 96.2% either go to college, university, or in employment. So there's a whole load of young people that system is working well for, and you'll be getting some of those young people. But I think it is really worth thinking about, is there a way of working with our college partners to say, yeah, right, okay, let's hold on to that, but let's identify something else. Suzanne and I piloted something called a Bridge to Employment, which was a designed programme with Arnold Clark, which could easily be designed with Diageo, which took them through a set of skills, a set of studies, a set of opportunities as part of their curriculum. And at the end of it, you could be confident and say, right, they did that, we worked with them, we know they've hit the mark, let's get them in. That's the kind of thing that's really worth a conversation. And Suzanne and I we were done by COVID. We designed this for mechanics in Arnold Clark, and we started off with, Suzanne will keep me right in the figures, 22 young people started in the programme, and we were just coming to the end of the programme when lockdown hit, and there were still 19 in there that Arnold Clark were ready to give an apprenticeship to. It was fantastic, and they all came from areas of the highest deprivation in the country, Gillian. But the kids would never have got in through that route. But Suzanne will tell you how good they were. And we designed that programme together, and we can do that with you guys as well. And yeah, still hold on to your college bit, but maybe just a wee widen access thing to say, let's just choose, I don't know, how many do you take on a year?
So we're taking on 44 this year.
So let's say take 5. Let's identify 5 that maybe come in a different route.
And see how, and pilot that.
Yeah, and see how they got on, if you're up for that.
No, yeah, I'd be up for totally exploring that, definitely.
Great stuff. Is that okay?
Yep.
I was just going to say, Jet, I know other people have got their hand up, but seeing as how you have referenced me there, I will jump in here and just say, I was going to back you up by saying there.
Good to see you.
Thank you, nice to see you too. But we absolutely did try to pilot something, because just to return back to the qualifications, I completely recognise that, Gillian, you and I, you know, in a similar boat and things, when I was my short time there at ScotRail, the qualifications are dictated to you by the college, but that's not to say because a young person can't evidence them in paper, they don't actually have the skill, the knowledge and the capability to be able to do it. But unfortunately, it's very hard to get beyond that piece of paper. So the work that we did with Jerry creating that role, you know, it was a real, that programme, it was the opportunity really to really properly see these young people, but it had to make sure that we didn't set any young person up to fail. That's the really important thing for me. Completely. You know, it can't be a qualification, it's beyond the skill level of that individual. So if you build a programme like Jerry referenced of a 12-week, you know, kind of thing, you've got the opportunity to see them over those 12 weeks. You're not just coming in and doing a half-an-hour work experience, or coming in and doing one test and going, oh yeah, they'll be able to do it, and taking a risk that way. You've got much more exposure to that young person. They know what they're signing up to, hopefully they realise the work that's going to be involved, but also from the employer point of view as well. In the Prince's Trust programme that we did at Arnold Clark was very similar. We took people with no qualifications whatsoever. So Jerry, as I'm sure you'll be aware, I'll be looking to explore something like that now with you again in my new role here at Lippers. So yeah, so apologies for jumping in and other people had their hands up there, but I just thought it was important to back up Jerry's point there. Thank you.
Sorry, Ashley, can I just pick up one wee issue, which is, I don't want you to give people jobs if they know what you need. This isn't a charity. This is about employment. It's about you getting what you need and kids getting opportunities. But I don't want you thinking that young person's not got the skills, the talents that I need to do my work, you know, in Diageo or wherever else. It's my issue, which is there's a whole load that have, and we're missing them. So how do we get them that opportunity? But there's that. I'm not in the business of sending young people up to fail. Never have been. So that's why you need to carefully design a programme. But you can do that and keep it at the level you need it to be, you know, so that you're getting what you need, rather than just saying, oh, there's a poor resale, let's give them a job. No, absolutely not. They're better than that. They're good enough. Give them a job, but give them a chance to demonstrate that they're good enough is the important thing. There's something else in the chat there, Ashley, if I can just pick it up. 2 things. if I had my skill to move it back up to chat. Somebody asked about, wait a minute now, Atta asking about young people of qualifications around. Yeah, absolutely. We did that. We got all the statistics for our young people of colour at last year's follow-up, and I've got them and I'll share them, and I'm going to collect them again. What it told us, though, Atta, was that young people of colour outperform Scottish young people, outperform white ethnic young people, both in terms of qualifications and positive destinations. So at the moment, that's not a target group for us, although obviously we're always keeping an eye on it. But they add value, they do better for all kinds of reasons, which is a whole different webinar. But I just want you to be assured of that. And the second point was about moving young people beyond traditional trades. I think that's a really critically important one, because for an awful lot of young people, they hear the word apprenticeship and they think plumbers and joiners and electricians and whatever. There are so many more than that. But we need to do two things, I suppose, picking up Alison's point. One is we need them to focus beyond that to what all the stuff that's up there now. And if you think about Just Transition, for example, you know, there's retrofitting specialists and there's, you know, insulation engineers, and I'm now saying words that I don't know what they mean, but I know that they're employment opportunities. So we need young people to know that, but we then need them to look and go, all right, so if I'm interested in being a plumber, I could actually be an insulation engineer, or I could be a retrofitting specialist. Do you see what I mean? So you have to make the connection as well as just raising the awareness. So that's an important point. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to get their horizons extended, and that's a big piece of work that we're trying to do as part of the strategy.
Thanks. We've got another question, I think, from Caroline.
Hi, I'm Caroline from the NHS Credit Union. It was just to say, in October, we employed a young person through the Kickstart programme, and we just had a chat with her, and we brought her on. She's been here since October, but she's fantastic, and we're absolutely giving her a full-time job. Fantastic. And not once did we ask her about what qualifications she had. We did it based on she was right for the job.
Aye.
And she's great. And she's starting with us in March full-time. Well, not full-time, part-time, but as a fully employed member of staff. So these programmes do work.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we also had another programme similar to that, because Kickstart's great, and that's a great story, Caroline, love that. But you have to be on universal credit for 6 months to go into Kickstart.
Right.
So school leavers can't. But we then created with the Chamber Step Up, which was Kickstart for school leavers, and we got 60 young people into that kind of programme who are now moving on to something else through that. So you're right, it's a fantastic way of getting young people in. And one of the things we're very focused on is trying to get more young people into the NHS, because there's so many opportunities in there beyond being a doctor or a nurse or a physio.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we were working very closely with you, and well, again, because again, the COVID mantra of we were getting to something and then we lost it, but we'll reinvigorate that, because there's a lot of chance for our young people in there and they just don't quite get it yet. So we'll need to make sure they do. But that's a great story. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Fiona, you've got your hand up next.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Just to kind of go off the back of what Caroline's just said, we've also done the same. So we're in Home Instead, which is also healthcare, and one of our Kickstarts has also just been made a permanent member of staff. So it is a fantastic scheme to go down for people. We are just branching into the apprenticeship side of things now within healthcare, and it's really interesting to know in terms of what Alison was saying and getting people interested in different trades. Do you hold events? Do you kind of get all of your apprenticeship partners together to talk to your young people about the different routes that they could go down?
Yeah, we do hold events. We have a whole load of different events, not just always employment events, but we have STEM events and different kinds of fairs for young people. And I suppose, Fiona, it's about all the different ways we might be able to get them to understand things. And I think with Teams now, we can do it much easier than we used to as well. Getting them onto one room used to be hard, but we can do it now. So yeah, lots of stuff either through individual schools, through the city, in areas. We try to do it in a whole load of different ways. Careers fairs have had varying success. There are some young people that go to careers fairs and the most they come away with is some pens and a couple of cuddly toys and a plastic bag, but they love all that stuff. I'll always love that stuff. Whenever my kids went, when I was head teacher, whenever my kids went to these things, I always insisted that they brought me back as many pens as they possibly could so that my office was always well stocked. So that's just one way, isn't it? But it's that thing, Fiona, which is if you can actually experience it and see it and be part of it, because very often for young people, they hear about something and they go, that's dead interesting. They go back to school and they go back to their lives and they never think about it again. Can we start with hearing about it and then follow up in terms of a programme or ongoing engagement so they not just hear about it, but they actually understand it? So that's an important bit of it. But yeah, we have loads of events, and Fiona, we're absolutely keen to work with you. So if you can give us your details, we'll make contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks. Mark Walker's next.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thanks to Jerry for his presentation and the team for organising this event, which I've found particularly enlightening. Can I speak on behalf of a small employer based in Glasgow? We have had some positive experience with both Kickstart and Step Up, very useful programmes, and have engaged us as an organisation in this whole subject of school leavers, qualifications, and the world, and bringing young people into the world of work. But there's been a lot of discussion this morning about qualifications, not exclusively, but a lot has been about qualifications and what young people feel they have to get or undertake. As an organisation, we're classified as a small organisation supplying bespoke sportswear to schools, colleges, universities, pro clubs, amateur clubs, and we also do workwear for small joinery businesses to national companies operating multi-site. So we've got a good range of work. The single most important thing to us as an organisation, to me and my partner, is that those who work for us come in and they enjoy what they do. Yeah. I really don't care what qualifications they have, whether it's at school, university or college, if they can do the work. And first and foremost, we do look at personality traits. And something that we have found, I'll be honest, a little disappointing, particularly with school leavers, is, for want of a better expression, their interview skills aren't great.
Yep.
And I think, as well as encouraging people to learn Shakespeare or get their National 5 in maths or whatever, perhaps work is being done, but maybe there could be a greater focus on how people might engage both in interviews and when they're on work placements, because an individual joining our team, we're 14 at the moment. I think by the end of this year we'll be about 20. I hope we'll be about 20. Certainly got the work for it, but getting the right people who can join the team and contribute to the team is just as important as their ability to write a letter or answer a telephone.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that point, that not everybody is completely hung up and fixated on qualifications.
I actually think your point about interviews are a really good one, Mark, and about interpersonal skills and about how you sell yourself, because we know that that's a challenge for our young people and for a lot of our young people. And we're working with schools, you see that section that I was talking about, which is make our young people more employable. that's one of the things that we've got to do to help our young people to be more employable. There's lots in that, because we've got to make sure that they've got things to talk about. So they've actually done stuff, you know. I suppose that picks up some of Julie's points and Suzanne's points, that we give them opportunity, we get them involved in working in their community and learning about that and taking on projects and making a difference. But then we need to train them to talk about that. And one of the feedbacks we got from employers when I was a head teacher was, your young people really struggle to talk about themselves to people they don't know. They could talk to me all day. They sat in my office when they were invited down for a chat about something. Always very positive. I'm sure you understand that head teacher only invited people in at my office when they were doing well. And they were able to talk to me no problem. But when a stranger came along, i.e. somebody like you, Mark, they just couldn't sell themselves. So we need, as part of our strategy, to build that skill, for our schools to build that skill, for us as a team to build that skill. And our DYW coordinators are very focused on, how do you make people more employable? Because if they can't talk the talk, I don't want you to employ them. I want you to get people that you go, he'll join my team and he'll bring something. That's on us. We need to help with that by giving them experiences and then help them talk about them. And sometimes that's just practice. And one of the things that we did, one of my teams here, Michelle Kershaw, who worked with me in St Andrews, we did a session with our third years where every single one of them was interviewed by a stranger at the end of third year, and they had to talk about themselves and their achievements. And it was just about putting them in a room with somebody they didn't know and then getting them some feedback to say, this is what you did well, this is what you could do better. We need to do more of that, but our schools understand that, and there is work going on. So yeah, your point about qualifications is the same as mine, but your point about interview and being able to come into the workplace and show what you've got is equally important, and that's part of Towards Better Futures as well.
Brilliant. I think we've got time for one last question, one last quick question. We've got Pamela with our hand up. Pamela, you're on mute. Don't think that's coming through, Pamela. Do you want to type your question into the chat? I think while that's coming through, just quickly we'll be finishing up just after this this question. If there's any follow-up, Michelle's put her contact details in the chat, so you can follow up directly with Michelle, or you can come through to the DYW team and we can tell you a bit more about the work that we do on engaging with employers and also linking with Jerry's team. I think, I'm not sure if Pamela's managed to get that question through.
Ashley, she's shown as offline. I don't know if
I can see she's on the camera. And...
all right.
Pamela, can you give me a thumbs up if you're typing your question? I don't think it's coming through, but any questions that you have, if you have questions after the event, you can still send them through to us and we'll do our best to get them answered for you. So I see we've just run over a tad, but some great questions, and thank you so much, Jerry. That's what a fantastic event. And we'll follow up with the recording after it and with the slides. And again, please keep in touch. We'd all be delighted to work with you.
Superb.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.